These monuments are in storage right now, and we got eyesores right now in these spots where the monuments were. Charles, you have some ideas on what can happen to these sites, and you've got one idea that I think is sort of interesting that we can show the viewers. It's called Victory Circle.
Victory Circle, yes.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things you have to do is you don't want to have a complaint. You want to have a solution when you come with a problem. And the Victory Circle idea is that the World War II Museum in D-Day is so close to that circle. That circle also honored the LSU Tigers, or Lee's Fighting Tigers as they were known in the day, where those men didn't come home. So D-Day was about people not coming home, and there's actually parts of that beachfront there by the museum. So why not turn Lee's Circle into Victory Circle and honor the men from all wars, all killed in action, all missing in action, all races, all genders, put statues up to show the women, American, Native Americans, Black African Americans, Latino, anybody who fought in the service or any branch, and turn that into something that can be used with the museum.
And at the top, you're talking about some sort of statue of a goddess of...
Well, and actually the top of the U.S. Capitol is the goddess of liberty.
Right.
And, you know, we found that one of the first monuments to go up overseas for Americans who didn't come home is in France. And it looks just like the column at Lee's Circle with a Statue of Liberty on it. And somebody said, well, maybe France would actually want to donate that to us for all we did during World War I. And the 100th anniversary is coming up in November.
Wow. So what kind of reaction have you gotten to your idea?
Right now, we are actually just in the initial stages of starting to work with Mayor Cantrell on that. They're digesting it. So we haven't heard back to say that we like it or don't, or change this or change that. But it puts it on the table, and I think it's important to say, hey, you know, where we are today in society, maybe the idea of something just to honor the Confederacy and the dead of the Confederacy is inappropriate. So we need to expand it. We can honor Korea, World War I, World War II, Vietnam.
All veterans.
All veterans.
All wars.
All wars.
Yeah.
And then you can, that museum is phenomenal in what it's doing. I think it's #2 in the world. So maybe they'd be interested in it. And we could also Arlington Cemetery as well.
And then you've got the Jeff Davis site, you've got the Beauregard site that need to be redeveloped as well.
Beauregard, I had an idea. You know, Beauregard, to me, wrote the Pledge of Allegiance. Many people might debate that, and that's a great debate to have. His words were equal rights, one flag, one country, one people. And he had that in a chant with the lieutenant governor who was an African-American in 1873. So what if you combine those two, and they called it the Unification Movement. And he made Beauregard Circle Unification Movement Circle. So,
yeah, I like that idea. And then on Jeff Davis, well, it's still called Jeff Davis, right? They haven't changed the name.
Still called Jeff Davis.
Right.
You know, people don't know, he was the guy that brought the railroad to New Orleans. He was the guy that was the lead agent on the Smithsonian. So museums, maybe there's a spot for him in a museum.
Right. So in our final minute or so, as we look at the damage here that was done, obviously it's set us back, but can we recover from this and move forward so we don't have these kinds of issues in the future?
I would hope we could. You know, and it obviously what's still going on right now is there's still a movement to take down more monuments.
Right.
As I listened recently to those speeches, you can see that I believe that there's some common ground to find with that movement and the other movements. You know, the hurricane shelter, they asked for a hurricane shelter. You know, Mitch didn't deliver that.
Right.
So that, I think, is something we should have been looking at doing.
Yeah.
And to meet with these groups and say, can we work together to use the monuments to educate and back away from anything that seems to say racism and white supremacy.
Do you think, and you've talked to the mayor, do you think she's going to be inclined to take down more monuments?
I don't think so. I think, you know, right now with Sewage and Water Board, she's bringing in some great people. I was at a budget meeting recently, and she's got so much on her plate that if she can unite the city, what an accomplishment that would be.
But as we speak, the group Take 'Em Down NOLA is rallying, and they're calling for more monuments to come down.
They are, and it seems that, you know, and one of the things in my book is that the Take 'Em Down movement, and actually that was the person running it out of New Orleans, ran for president in 1984 as a socialist. So this movement uses these marches in a way to get email addresses to grow their base for the socialist movement, which we've seen right now is very strong coming into the 2018 elections.
Yeah, and they are obviously a big factor in these monuments coming down because they organized. They had people out there, and we're looking at some pictures of them right now, the People's Assembly. And, you know, a lot of these are socialist movements, right?
And they're nationwide. I mean, she came down to us from Ohio, I believe, and she was in New York for the Occupy Wall Street movement. So this is all about how do you use a movement to grow your base. And that's what's going on for 2018 and for 2020.
Right. And it seems like the socialist movement has almost taken over the Democratic Party. In a lot of respects.
Well, you think that these type of events draw so many people, whether it be Antifa, whether it be people on other causes like having better wages for hospitality workers, or even a hurricane shelter. You know, the thought of that Navy base could have been a great evacuation shelter for those who don't have cars. And Mitch ignored that.
Yeah. And also, I think some money wasn't allocated correctly, but that's another topic for another day. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Joe.
And we're going to segue into a discussion on freedom versus socialism. Economics professor Dr. Walter Block of Loyola is going to be joining us next, right here on Ringside.